Welcome to the American Mandate. I'm Grady.
And I'm Camden. So, JFK files got released. Cool.
Yeah.
It
Took long enough.
It feels kind of like that's my reaction because we've had just bad optic after just bad decision making of lately from the Trump administration. I want to be able to praise the person I voted for and I endorsed, right? I want to be able to put him up on a pedestal and be like, yeah, this is our guy. The JFK files should have been released back in March, back in January when it first was announced. He put out the executive order for it. I get it. Took months to get it figured out. It is March when they said it would come out, but we're still waiting on Epstein. We haven't gotten the second set of that. This was clearly phase one. We haven't gotten MLK. We haven't gotten 9/11. And the thing is that all this, I don't think there's going to be this great conspiracy that is going to be revealed in it. Because I like everyone else in the public believes
there is no
that
smoking gun.
If there was a smoking gun, they would have gotten that out. I don't believe
they definitely did. I mean, The one thing that's clear about these files is there's a lot of reports that are not in them, and they've probably been destroyed for 50 years. You know what I mean? They are long gone. The CIA would never release anything that would be very implicating that they would be behind this. But there's a lot in there that suggests that they killed him.
But I think that's what's interesting is before we get into what the actual JFK files state. All of this was just to push transparency and to be like, hey, this is our government talking directly to us, not treating us like we're stupid, not treating us like they are better than us. We put them there. And so this is what all the files are supposed to be. It's like, hey, secrecy is over and we don't have to hide this stuff because there's not a threat to national security. So here are the files. Here's everything. Read for them yourself, whatever you think. And okay, we got JFK files. Sweet. I just don't think this is just so small potatoes compared to what's going foreign and
also,
what is going
this could have
domestic.
been a win if they did it in a timely manner.
Exactly.
And didn't have the Epstein debacle. If this was 15 days after they made a plan and then it was a month from there they had to release them. If they actually did that, then this would have been oh, great. We're actually
Donald
getting
Trump
something.
Promises made,
right.
Promises kept.
Exactly. That's not what happened.
No, this seems
He's
just
had lose after lose all week, and he needed to have some kind of win. And he said, please get these files together and get them out because I'm not doing very hot right now. But on the flip side, it seems like his poll numbers are still great, and people still like the direction he's going in, which is just wild to me.
It is interesting. As far as all the poll numbers go, they're all as far as saying that Trump is doing well. I think the only poll that I saw was out of Fox News that said that it's around where Obama was during his time of saying that Obama was being said 68% thought he was being too hands-on with all these executive orders. It's 51% as far as for Trump goes, and also 92% of Republicans approve of what he's doing as far as the jobs go. 92% of Democrats disapprove of it, of course. But the real number is 60-some% of independents don't think Trump is doing well as far as job goes. Yeah. That's specifically jobs. It's not talking about foreign wars or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so if they're not sure about how Trump is doing as far as jobs go, which that was supposed to be Trump's strength, that shows where we're at, because I'm seeing probably Bush when Bush was 92% for going to reacting and sending let's do the war on terror. Mm-hmm. That was because we were attacked and Americans were pissed. There's nothing here. We wanted to pull out of the Middle East forever ago. That was the whole reason Trump was trying to pull out of Afghanistan, and then Biden eventually did, because we were done with the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And so now Trump is getting us into it, and we've talked about that all week. And so coming back to these JFK files, it's just as you said, if this happened a couple weeks ago, if things were going kind of well, and then the JFK files, it's oh, look, another thing Trump has done well. The problem is that's not.
No.
He dropped 1,000 documents that were unorganized that we had to fish through ourselves and highlight stuff.
And I'm not mad about it being disorganized. I've seen people up in arms about that. In my opinion, like when Anna Polina's like, "Oh, I'm putting together a task force to investigate these files and do a whole report." It's like nobody trusts you to do that. Don't even bother. Nobody wants to pay you to go to Dallas and try to piece together some bullshit. It's like, just, you gave us the files, we'll do it ourselves because we don't trust you. You're in government, obviously. So that's just goofy. Also, I don't know, man. It's just like, it seems to me that every president, no matter what they run on, I mean, Obama ran on ending Bush's wars, and within months he broke that promise. And it seems like Trump did the same thing here. And even in 2016, he ran on getting out of the Middle East. And sure enough, he was still in the Middle East throughout his entire first presidency. Here he goes, no more new wars, 2024, here we go. And as soon as he gets in, we're back in the Middle East. It just seems to be like the military-industrial complex is unmovable. And it doesn't matter who's in power. That's a fact. Anyway, I wanted to get into the files a little bit. I haven't done a total deep dive because I'm, bad at doing that. But I'm trusting people in X, and what I've actually read, it seems like it confirms that the CIA was definitely doing regime changes and doing all kinds of war crimes over the past 50, 60 years, if not longer, to, overthrow governments like Cuba, all these other places and everywhere in the Middle East as well, but definitely in Cuba, which is where most of the evidence is pointing to. Another interesting thing was the CIA was watching Lee Harvey Oswald before he allegedly assassinated JFK. Also, apparently Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby, who killed Lee Harvey Oswald ultimately, apparently met at a nightclub weeks before JFK's death. Another interesting thing, this guy Gary Uphill was found dead after trying to warn of the coming assassination plot. He was found dead well after. And it's very clear that there's many missing files that probably were more implicating to the CIA that were either removed or destroyed or redacted. And another interesting thing, and I don't want to over speculate, but like on a lot of these files, it does say, it has this stamp, and the stamp was made in 1998, and it says, the CIA does not object to any declassification except for what we put in brackets. And all I could find in all these files that was put in brackets was anything that said the word Israel, Mossad, Israeli intelligence. That's kind of interesting. I'm not going to draw any conclusions there because I have no further evidence, but that's interesting. It's also worth mentioning that JFK at the time was trying to get AIPAC, the Israel lobby, to register as a foreign lobby, which they were not happy about. And he was also trying to get them to not have a nuclear program, which after his death, LBJ ultimately gave to them. So take that for what you will.
When it comes to JFK, there's 1.5 million reasons why he was assassinated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as far as getting us out of the Cuban Missile Crisis, making sure, like, trying to actually do the working to, like, hey, we're in Vietnam. Shoot, we just need to pull out of that. That's a bad thing.
Challenging the Federal Reserve.
Challenging the Federal Reserve.
Challenging the CIA.
Yes, challenging the CIA, challenging Israel, and the nuclear program. Just 1.5 million
There's so many reasons to kill him.
And I think
when a lot of interests like that converge, it's just, that's what happens.
And the thing is, I mean, like, look at what happened to Trump. Trump almost got shot, and it was basically because of just a whole bunch of things that were happening, as far as Iran wanting to kill him, as far as...
I don't believe that, though. I don't believe that Iran tried to kill him. I think that's
No, I say wanting him. Yeah, because I think he is working against Iran.
Well, absolutely, but I think that, like, when I don't know what news article released it, but when they released that story saying that they were behind an assassination plot, I'm like,
no. My point is that it's the same situation. Yeah. We're just looking at it now.
Yeah. Right.
But looking back then, it's like, I don't think Russia had anything to do with RFK's death. I don't know for a fact, or I think Israel had anything to do with his death. But my thought process of what happened with JFK is the CIA dropped the ball. And same thing with Secret Service, dropped the ball on Trump's assassination. Here's the main point that, like, annoys me about the JFK files is the whole Mike Pompeo thing of, like, not wanting any of these files to be released and saying that you should not release them, and, like, there's, like, some sort of, like, smoking gun or something in there. The fact
if
that
there was, it's gone.
And that's my point, is that
so
I
maybe
think
there was something that he said, you can't release this.
And
then they decided, okay, well, we'll take these out, but we're still going to release this bunch.
But I mean, because like they lied to us, saying that like there wouldn't be anything redacted, and there's plenty of stuff that is redacted in these files.
Now, a lot of that is like grand jury names and stuff like that makes sense. But there's a lot that isn't. There's a lot that's like, what's behind these? But it is interesting that in 1998 they wanted Israel to be redacted, and then ultimately they didn't redact it because we can read it. I don't know, man. Now, I respect the assumption you're going with. I think it's a normal assumption. I think it's kind of a practical one. But the conclusion that I draw is that the CIA definitely killed Kennedy. But that will be my own opinion. I'm not going to say that's fact. I'd say a lot of evidence points to the fact that they killed him and that the FBI covered it up. Can't prove it. That's just where I'm coming from.
I think the problem is that the government, and this is something that we'll always talk about, is the government pushes these conspiracy theories by not being transparent.
Right.
And so I may say that you saying the CIA killed him is a conspiracy theory. The problem is the only way to prove that is if the government is transparent. And that is something you and I both can agree on, is that no presidency in our history has been transparent.
Nor will they ever be.
No, because they are the top of the food chain. They have all the power. And it's not like
you and I
commit
a lot of crimes.
After
obviously.
You and I vote in Donald Trump, we cannot vote him out. We have to vote in other people to impeach him in the House. Yeah. And then those people, that after they impeach him, go to the Senate to see if he's worthy of a crime to then be kicked out.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's what was going to happen to Nixon, but Nixon then dipped out beforehand. It's what happened. It was going to happen to Andrew Johnson, except it was one vote away from getting him. And so it's just, I understand the checks and balances, but the point is that our country has been working against American citizens for as long as we can remember.
Yep.
And it's
ultimately, whether this was CIA malice or CIA just dropping the ball or whatever, ultimately this does prove how corrupt our government has been and continues to be to this day.
Agreed.
And that's just sickening. Anyway, Daily Wire.
The Daily Wire. So I'm going to read this piece from Axios, who got the exclusive on it. So Daily Wire co-CEO Jermey Boreing is stepping down. Jermey Boreing, who co-founded the Daily Wire with, I forget the other guy's name, but then with also Ben Shapiro.
Caleb something.
Caleb Robinson. Not important. I believe it's in the article because he's taking over. But anyway, he told staff in a memo obtained by Axios on Tuesday that he will be stepping down and focusing on creative projects for the company. Why it matters: Boreing has been the Daily Wire since its inception in 2015. He helped grow the outlet from a tiny news startup with $4.7 million in seed funding to a media giant valued north of $1 billion last year. Caleb Robinson, yeah, that was his name. The company's founding CEO will become the company's full-time CEO effective immediately. Robinson and Boreing have been co-CEOs since 2019. Robinson co-founded the company alongside Boreing and the outlet's editor emeritus, Ben Shapiro. In a note to staff, Boreing said he will remain in the company in an advisory role. He will continue to host Daily Wire Backstage, the company's monthly show featuring Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, and Andrew Klavan. And he will also focus full-time on creative projects, including the completion of the Daily Wire's TV series, The Pendragon Cycle, in which he serves as the director and executive producer. I think anybody who was not a fan of Daily Wire or who used to be a fan of Daily Wire could tell the Daily Wire was in financial trouble.
Yeah.
And that they are in a deep decline. The Daily Wire was incepted in the idea just off of Ben Shapiro's facts don't care about your feelings. And it was a attack of the right finally pushing back on the left. Mm-hmm. And that was its entire inception. So when they made a chocolate bar, it was a response to the she-her campaign of Hershey's. When they made the razor, it was a response to Harry's dropping them. Everything that the Daily Wire has done has been a response and trying to, like, their whole thing, they say it openly, is that why give your money to them? Give it to me instead, who actually agrees with your values and will support you.
Yep.
That was all good until they kicked Candace Owens to the curb. Mm-hmm. I don't care for Candace Owens. I don't know her personally. I'm just some guy in Arizona. But based on what she preaches, I don't always agree with her. I think family stuff, I think she's pretty good with. But based on what she said, there was no reason for her to be fired.
Right.
And then we go to Brett Cooper and how that handling, and they thought they could just replace Brett Cooper with her producer. Yeah. And because people are just want to be entertained. This is an old media style of line of thinking that the talent can just be replaced and bring someone back in. And so this company has been declining, and what has kept this company afloat has been Ben Shapiro's show, really, because it's been consistently in the top 10 podcasts. It has been Matt Walsh's documentaries.
Yeah.
And
that's about it.
And Brett Cooper.
Yeah. And Brett Cooper was huge. People like Andrew Klavan is just, how are they even on the air? That's what I want to know.
Because Andrew Klavan does one show a week, and he has his audience, but the problem with all of these...
Andrew Klavan's a very hateful person, by the way. I'm not a fan.
No, Andrew Klavan... that's a whole nother story. Andrew Klavan is not somebody that I enjoy listening to, and I think like immediately once the Candace thing happened, he said it was his job to talk about what happened with Candace, and it was like, no, I thought you all were under NDAs. You're not supposed to talk about this. Yeah. And so Candace Owens couldn't defend herself, but Andrew Klavan was going around on every single show telling how crappy she was.
Yeah.
And that was a totally planned thing from Jermey Boreing.
Oh yeah,
guarantee it. The point being though is, Daily Wire has focused on everything except promoting their hosts. I mean, the fact that it took until late last year for I think it was late last year when Michael Knowles finally got a set. It's just because the show it's rarely in the top 200 podcasts. Yeah. And so I understand why. Matt Walsh brings in a lot of money with those podcasts, those documentaries, yeah. I believe. I mean, it was made over $4 million on his Am I Racist?
Yeah.
Which is crazy for the Daily Wire type film.
Yeah.
And they've just been putting money in. And like I remember listening to, because Daily Wire does these town halls with Jermey Boreing, and his name just it's boring. It's awful.
It is.
It's terrible. But when he talked about, I remember when he did Bent Key,
yeah.
and he was saying that I just told Caleb and Ben basically that we're gonna invest $1 million in the kids' content, and I just came up with this, and I'm coming out here to announce, and this is what we're doing. And yeah. I'm like.
And I love the story he goes of how he named it. He goes, yeah, I always had this bent key, and I'd wear it around my neck, so I'm calling it Bent Key. I'm like, really?
I mean, Bent Key's a fine name. It's just
a fine
a dumb
name,
story.
but it's just like, you're just such a boring person with like no opinion. I don't know. Listen, with that aside, this company is in like complete financial collapse.
It's in free fall.
And I mark my words, I think Matt Walsh is going to be the next to jump ship. I think he needs to. I think he's a slave to this place. He's not going to be able to do the movies he was doing. He's not going to be able to have all this money and all this stuff. But
I think he can, still.
I think either way, he needs to break free because he's the only one there that seems to have any kind of opinion of his own now.
What's interesting is that the people who are profitable, I didn't even mention Jordan Peterson.
They destroyed that guy. And that's his own doing, but like, man, the second he jumped ship to the Daily Wire is when I just totally lost respect for him.
No, but I think he's going to leave very soon because he has this whole college thing also that he's doing with these college courses with his daughter.
Yeah.
And the Daily Wire itself, I've said this before with you many times, they need to cut the TV. They need to cut all this extra crap, all these side companies, and they need to focus on
the
hosts that they have. They need to promote, and then they need to bring on more hosts and then focus on each host doing specials. Like the Candace Owens did like 5 specials, it felt like, when she was there. She was so profitable over there. Like she made a 3 thing on the vaccine. She did a whole movie on the Black Lives Matter jest. It was just thing after thing after thing that she did, and she was just uncovering stuff. And it was like, This is great. And I mean, Matt Walsh doing his thing. What does Ben Shapiro do besides the show? Not really much. Michael Knowles, he did a cigar business. Okay, like it's just there's all the way everywhere.
Like the thing about Matt Walsh and Candace Owens, and Brett Cooper, those 3, they were profitable because they actually like did other things. They actually, and Jordan Peterson too. Like he actually does. Like I don't like him there, but he actually does a bunch of stuff. He's not just doing interviews or doing podcasts. Like Matt Walsh made movies. Candace Owens did like investigative journalism and all this other stuff.
I guess Ben Shapiro did Debunked and did that kind of stuff, but it just wasn't.
That's not enough.
It's not enough. And
I'm not saying he has to do more. I'm just saying if you're going to prop up talent, like maybe don't fire them over disagreements.
Put money into your talent.
Yes.
That's it. Like Brett Cooper, the amount of Brett Cooper was the token I'm the female who talks about TikTok and stuff like that.
Yeah, like she's
and based on everything,
I didn't watch her that much, but like she was clearly popular because she talked about kind of the Hollywood stuff that young people like.
And everything I looked into about her, she was a huge profitability for the Daily Wire and like saved a huge financial side of them.
Yeah.
And you're kidding me? You're not going to do everything you can to keep that going? It's just, I think what people are also misunderstanding about this situation is Jermey Boreing's not leaving the company.
No.
And they're saying
I wish he was.
They're saying Jermey Boreing's doing an advisory role. It's more than that. He was not the CEO in 2015. Caleb Robinson was. He became co-CEO in 2019, and this is when you see a lot of these problems coming up.
Yeah.
But take it, under him, they did add Candace Owens, they did add Brett Cooper.
And then they fired both of them.
And then they fired both of them idiotically.
Yeah.
But he's...
Although I would say the Candace situation was mainly Ben Shapiro's doing. I think he pressured them to get rid of her because of her stance on Israel.
Probably, but think about it. Jermey Boreing blew up the Steven Crowder deal.
Yeah, I mean, that was another massive fumble.
He blew up the Tim Pool deal. Like there was a thing where Tim Pool was going to join the Daily Wire, and then there's another thing. You do more research, and now it's like more recent. Now Tim Pool's in a situation to actually he could buy the Daily Wire, which would be stupid. He's not going to. He didn't want.
I watched Ian Carroll's video on it. Yeah,
but like
interesting stuff.
It is interesting because that's how they flopped like situations and how like. And I'm not as big a fan of Tim Pool. I think there's
not a fan either.
But I mean,
I'm not a fan of Steven Crowder either. It's just. All these guys have just kind of like lost touch with.
I like when they're in their own world, and it's weird. I think that's where they're at their best. And so people who like Steven Crowder go to Steven Crowder.
Once you start conglomerating to one company, that's when it just becomes. They all just lose who they are. It just becomes one message with a bunch of different faces.
And that's the problem with the way they have all the shows now on the Daily Wire, and it's been an issue for a while. They all talk the same stories. They're all standing here talking. It's what I've told you a huge bit is when looking at Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, that format is dying. Yeah. Of like sitting here today on the Matt Walsh show, today on Daily Wire's latest thing. Like here we are on Sean Hannity. It's the same thing, and it's just talks for an hour. And it's like
when they read a teleprompter is when it kind of gets boring, don't you think?
There's a way to talk.
Dude, I watch so much more Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, anything where it's just like a couple people just talking about something.
But the thing is that there is a way to do teleprompter that's interesting and to intercut things.
Absolutely.
Except they do the bare minimum.
They just sit there like they are really, like you said, they're basically glorified news talk show people like on like CNN. They just sit there at a desk and they just stare into the camera and they read the words. Now sometimes they go on rants and that's when they're at their best, is when they're actually like being a real human.
Yes.
But when they're at their worst is when they're just kind of just throwing up the company jargon and like, yeah, we got to, 50% off Daily Wire, blah, blah, blah. And they're just, blah, 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 just completely, it's like nonsense. Dude.
I don't blame them for that.
No, I don't. But
I blame them for is putting all their energy into these things that don't matter and don't move.
Yeah. Like Jeremy's chocolate, Jeremy's razors. It's just like,
it was awful brand. It's like, I had the chocolate. It was terrible. Like, I'm
just
sorry.
Calling himself the God King. It's like, dude, could you have any bigger of an ego?
That's the thing that frustrates me the most is that, like, and what made me, like, what's weird is that's what made me not want to subscribe to the Daily Wire. I kept subscribing to the Daily Wire because I enjoyed Michael Knowles' show.
Yeah. And I wanted to watch Matt Walsh's stuff.
So that was interesting for me. And I was like, okay, I want to support that show.
Yeah.
But I don't go to the Daily Wire to watch Gina Carano's film Terror on the Prairie.
No,
I watched all their films. The only film that was worth the two films that were worth the time of day was What Is a Woman and The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. Yeah. That's it.
And it's like when they do documentary type stuff and investigative journalism, or like kind of a comedic journalism like with Matt Walsh, that's them at their best.
Yeah, but then they fired Candace Owens, the main investigative journalist person that they had.
They're retarded.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Daily Wire is in free fall. Jermey Boreing is no longer in charge. Maybe it'll improve. Maybe it'll get sold. I'm not sure.
But here's the thing: is that they're co-CEOs. So Caleb Robinson now is just
so is Ben Shapiro not a CEO?
No, he hasn't been at all.
So he doesn't make any final calls then.
No,
Okay.
That as far as I know, he's friends with Jeremy and friends with Caleb. They started the company together. So
Yeah.
it's not like he has no say. He probably has a heavy influence. He had a heavy influence on the Candace Owens thing.
Interesting.
But he doesn't have final say in the company. He's not in charge of any of these deals.
Yeah.
He is what makes the Daily Wire profitable in my mind, and then all these other hosts add a value to it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put that down saying that like, oh, Matt Walsh is not valuable or Brett Cooper is not valuable. They are huge talent that deserve to be preserved. But Ben that's why Ben Shapiro dropped down to editor emeritus. I can never say that word. But
Editor
I mean
what?
Emeritus. It's like an honorary role almost.
Okay.
Because he's not. He used to when the company
he's a
started.
founder.
He was editor in chief. But
Right.
that
He was a founder, so he's kind of got like that kind of role.
yeah.
right?
But editor in chief, he moved on to the guy who does Morning Wire.
Yeah.
The one who's in charge of that. He's the editor in chief.
Really?
Yeah. So he has nothing. He just focuses on the Ben Shapiro show. And
I wonder why he had so much pull on the, because he was 100% behind the Candace thing.
well, I mean, he started the company.
Yeah.
And so he can and he started it with Jeremy.
Yeah.
And if you listen to their story about it, Jeremy and this is why I believe Ian Carroll
Ian Carroll.
Ian Carroll's
Just Carroll. Ian Carroll.
well no Ian Carroll's video.
Yeah.
Because what I understand about it is Jermey Boreing wants to be in Hollywood. He wants to be a famous director or actor or something. And when he was talking about Ben Shapiro to it like years ago, he was like talking about the hardest thing for me was realizing that I'm not the talent and you're the talent, Ben, and I'm just the company guy. And I don't think Jeremy has ever fully come to terms with that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a pride thing there, and that is why the
He
Daily
tried to
Wire
make it in Hollywood. He couldn't. So that's why he's like you said, he's trying to bring Hollywood to the Daily Wire.
Which I don't blame. Like everybody wants their space to feel like they're accomplished. I understand that,
Like,
but he's
sure if you and I had a big, media company like that we would be like, hey, let's make a movie or something, and we got money and I don't like blame him for that, but it's like, dude, you're the head of the company. Like, pay attention to the finances.
I blame you for choosing your personal ambitions over everyone at the company, because everyone I've heard from that company has terrible horror stories, and it's because
even did you see Brett Cooper? I mean, she couldn't say anything, she's under NDA, but she like posted a gif of like when he was stepping down, she's like just smiling. Yeah, like
I like how you did that. Like, we're on an audio podcast, so no one can.
People can watch us.
People can watch your reaction. Yeah, like under the tweet though.
She posted a gif of like Jimmy Fallon like doing like a pan smile, so you could tell she was happy that he was stepping down.
And that's the whole thing where Jermey Boreing is behind
all the problems.
All of these problems. Yeah. Ben Shapiro might have had pull with the Candace Owens thing,
definitely,
but
they're all the thing with Ben Shapiro is he is basically a shill for Israel, and I don't blame him for that. He's a Jew, but like, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying he is an American citizen who puts the priority of Israel before his own country. So anything like this whole Yemen thing, he's spinning it about how great it is, and it's just objectively horrible. So, especially U.S. is involved in it. So it's like you can tell that this guy, Israel comes first for him, and it seems like this just spread throughout the whole company.
But at least when Ben Shapiro does it, you understand that he is a Jew.
Yeah, it's like,
so you
no
understand
wonder this
his
guy's
bias.
Gonna be, yeah.
It's like walking into a conversation and understanding. Okay,
But on the backstage, when Matt Walsh tried to challenge funding to Israel, he goes, he was saying, he was making a comment on somebody saying, oh, it's our patriotic duty as Americans to support Israel. And he goes, I don't care what country you are. Like, it's not your patriotic duty to pledge fealty to a foreign country. And then the whole group just turned on him. It was really weird.
But that's my thing. As a Christian, my allegiance is to Jesus Christ. It is to God. It is to my family, and it's to my country.
Right.
So when I have a biasy, when I hear like say there's a massacre like the one that happened in Syria, that bothers me more than other people. I understand that. If something happened in the Vatican City, that probably would have more of an effect on Michael Knowles, and you can understand that as a Catholic. Yep. But when you have that whole backstage, is what I was going to get into also, when you look at that backstage and Matt Walsh is like doing what I would do, is like, my priorities are
to America,
to America, and everyone jumps on it. It understands like where the company
stands. Yeah,
stands, and it's
because immediately Jeremy Boreing's like, whoa, be careful, and then he goes, actually, I think it is patriotic to do that. And then Ben Shapiro, you could tell, was just fucking like shaking in frustration with Matt Walsh. And then Michael Knowles just interrupts everybody. He goes, yeah, but we should just support Israel.
Michael Knowles is that guy that understands what can't be said.
Yeah.
And so he's a company man. He's basically Joe Biden, which is funny.
He is definitely a company man. So he goes, but we should just support Israel. And then Andrew Klavan and Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boreing and Michael Knowles, they'll break out in laughter. And Matt Walsh is just sitting there like, where
Michael
the fuck
Knowles
am I right
is
now?
at his best when he's just talking about his beliefs. He's talking about Catholicism, and he's like,
unless it's the Pope, but yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that when he's talking about politics, like that, like when he's talking about his own opinion, he feels free to.
Yeah.
That's when he has best. When he's at his worst is when he's a company man for the Catholic Church and defending the Pope.
Yes.
He's at his worst when he's company man defending the Republican Party, defending Donald Trump.
Or
he's the worst when he is the company man defending Daily Wire, defending Jeremy Boreing, Ben Shapiro, and then leading into defending Israel.
Right.
That's the issue. So there's not much more to say. I know this feels like old news. I mean, because it broke a couple days ago, but
it's just a greater problem that these companies, especially on the right, just seem to be completely out of touch with the American people. And you can tell that like natural conversation podcasting is just completely taken over. Like, they're part of the old media, too, just on the right. And they're also just deceased.
Well, we're just making... It's why it's so nice that Megyn Kelly was by herself, except she's owned by a bigger company. She's owned by SiriusXM.
Yeah, and she's,
PBD, like, owns a few different sides. I mean, what's funny is I think the most free platform out of everybody is Newsmax, which is hilarious because it's a traditional media type, but it's like...
Well, the freest are the ones that aren't shackled by anything, like Joe Rogan. But those aren't news places. Those are just conversations. But you can just tell why they're way more popular is because he'll interview anybody. And they might be an idiot.
And I think that's the problem with Tucker Carlson is that people see him as the news guy. And sometimes he's just letting people talk. And
he's just the Joe Rogan guy. That's what Tucker's become. And I feel like he should be allowed to do that. But... he does come from news. I understand people's frustration. There's some people he has on there that are just morons. And there's some people on there that are worth listening to that people put down just because it's Tucker Carlson show.
Right.
Anyway, Teslas.
So,
they've been getting vandalized and set on fire and blown up and, all kinds of stuff. That's awful,
Yes.
Not for that, obviously.
It's domestic terrorism.
I condemn it. It's domestic terrorism. But when I see like a post from like Elon Musk saying this is like evil and it's domestic terrorism, I'm like, absolutely agree. I'm with you. But why are you using this kind of language for your cars and you won't condemn like the bombing of Yemen or like the complete bombardment of Gaza again?
One's done by the left, one's done by the right.
Right. It's just like, okay, I see where you stand. Like he owns X. He sees all these posts about these dead kids and all this other stuff and he's like worried about his cars. And he makes a decision to post about that and not even address anything. Or it just felt really weird optically. It really pissed me off. Maybe I'm wrong to have that opinion, but it was like really disturbing to me to see that.
I have to say the funniest thing about Elon Musk is that if he cared about his own financial gain, the worst thing he could have done was to be in line with Donald Trump because conservatives do not buy gas cars.
Yep.
And now the left is buying gas-guzzling vehicles. Like, I'm seeing Mark Kelly, like, be like, now I'm going to go, here's my Chevy. And it's like the Chevy Tahoe, the most gas-guzzling vehicle that you can think of. Or Misha Collins, who's famous from Supernatural, is like, I turned in my Tesla that I wrecked. And... or someone wrecked into me, and I used the insurance money to get like this 90s Ford. It's like, and I'm like, oh, that's a great truck. Like, I'm happy for you. Yeah. Like, I'm glad that you got that vehicle because I don't like Teslas. No. But just saying that out loud.
I don't like electric vehicles.
And I think that's the thing is that the left has completely left the EV mandate that they push forth because
they don't believe in anything, do they?
No, the person who is at the top of the food chain of electric vehicles
is their enemy.
And so now they can't support it. But, like, see, here's the thing. If they wanted to be
EV... And the right now pretends to like them.
No, if they still wanted to support EV, right?
Yeah.
And they said that's what they actually cared about. There's two things they could have done. They could have went to Rivian, who I think actually makes cooler-looking electric vehicles, or... they could have went to General Motors because General Motors is actually putting EV stations at pilot stations and all these other places to make it kind of like Tesla, where Tesla has them everywhere. They're making it at a gas station and kind of taking over Tesla's market in that space. So go take one of those EV vehicles.
Yeah.
There's a reason that they understand that they don't care, and they realize that their EV vehicle sucks.
Yep.
And they used it as an excuse to move off of it.
Right. It's just funny, man. Like, it's just so goofy. Like,
none of them have values.
And the right too. Like, MAGA's like suddenly loves Teslas. It's like, you guys never liked electric vehicles. Give me a fucking break.
And none of them are buying electric vehicles.
No, but nobody's buying it. Nobody
Trump's
can afford
base is this is why unions. He was a big part of his thing.
Yeah.
It's you and I. You and I are not going out and buying a 20, 30, 40 grand vehicle right now. You and I are not going out and doing that.
You know what the problem was? Trump decided when he campaigned, he was going to try to get every side on his side. He was going to try to pull Democrats, neocons,
and he did
old school liberals, old school like populist Republicans and Democrats, people that are into like electric vehicles, and people that want war, people that don't want war. Like, he pulled everybody in, and now he's the president, and all these sides are fighting each other. And it's just really funny.
I think it is really funny. And as you and I talked about this off the pod, where it was like, I never was a Republican. I need to support the Republican Party. I register as a Republican because Arizona requires you to be a part of a party to vote in their primary, as it should be.
Right.
We just voted.
That's the only reason I'm not switching to independent, by the way.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm not. Because I do agree with that. Like, if you're a Republican, you should only be ones allowed to vote in your own primary. However, it's very freeing to see the Republican Party be not in disarray, but the Democrat Party's in disarray.
Split,
but the Republican Party's been split in a million different ways, but
especially
I feel I can be actually critical of Donald Trump because he's already elected.
Yep.
And it's like
That's our job.
I don't have to worry about the Democrats, because they're a deceased party.
Yeah.
And so now I'm
just
worried about
paying attention. It's worth like keeping an eye on them every once in a while. Oh, what are you guys up to? Oh, you're still retards? Okay. But like, it's worth like, oh shit, Gavin Newsom's making a poll for the White House. Okay, let's pay attention to that.
But it's so freeing to not like be like, feel like you have to defend this person because the other one is way worse.
Exactly, man. It's like playing blue team or red team you're not going to make it in this business anymore, because it's been clear that both sides, when you're just a complete blind loyalist, lead to just loyalty to a politician.
Americans want honesty, and they're not like, and people who are listening to this show, it's probably going to be more conservative side, but it's going to be, my hope is audience is not MAGA people. And I'm sorry, if you're listening to the show and you're MAGA, hey, yeah, I'll take your view. But
our hope is that you are open to criticizing the president.
That's my point.
Open to at least having an open mind about what's going on in day-to-day life, and not just being like, oh, we're in the Middle East. Oh, well, it's Trump, so he must know what he's doing. It's like, no, we're in the Middle East. He broke a promise, dude. That's bad.
And that's what I mean. I don't want those kind of, like, if you supported Donald Trump, we did too. If you are about America first, we are too.
I got into an argument on Facebook because I made a post saying, I'm saying, yeah, I voted for him, but I do condemn this stuff in the Middle East. I don't support it, blah, blah, blah. And I got into an argument because the first statement I said is I happily voted for Donald Trump because the Democrat Party has gone insane. And then I got into an argument with my cousin about, he wanted me to clarify why I think they've gone insane. And it's like, he doesn't like them either, but he goes, but they've always been like this. I'm like, dude, they've gotten really bad lately. Like, how do I know? So I really had to explain myself, but it's like, it does really feel freeing to be able to like say in an argument. I don't have to like try to justify all this dumb shit Trump is doing. I can just say, yeah, all this dumb shit the Democrats do, that was awful. And guess what? All this dumb shit that he's doing now, it's also awful, because, man, just partisan politics is just cancer. And it's just so nice to like finally realize that. I mean, when this show started, I was in that MAGA movement, like gung-ho, like trying to, I was still critical of a couple things, but I was like still trying to justify things he was doing, like
I was kind of pushing you into a corner.
Yeah, and when the Epstein thing happened, I was like, yeah, man, I just can't defend this. And then it just got worse from there. So, yeah. That's the Tesla thing. I just wanted to talk about how it seems like you said, the party is just, they don't give a shit about values anymore. Or maybe they never did.
No, none of them did. And I think what we were hoping for with MAGA was twofold. Was one, MAGA brings everything back to the center, so then you can have conservative and liberal.
Yeah.
But then the second thing is Republicans. Everything that was being said was Republicans have swapped since Bush, and we are now the anti-war party. We are not.
And we really have never been.
We thought we were switching. We thought Trump was switching, saying no new wars. And Ron Paul's posted this clip, and a whole bunch of libertarians have posted this clip of Trump saying, "Why don't you just pick up the phone?" And it's like, that's the guy I voted for. Yeah. The guy who said that I can just pick up the phone to. I don't care if you're Saudi Arabia. I don't care if you're Iran.
What it takes to be president, what it takes to be elected, is money. And once you take money from people, you're owned by them.
But the thing is that the American people. Here's the thing. We would take the hit financially about gas, right? If it was another country's fault, saying, hey, I'm trying to pick up the phone to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is saying, no, you don't send us weapons. So your prices are going to be higher. I'm going to try to bring them down as fast as possible, but just so you know, that's what's happening. Yeah. American people would be like, okay, I understand that, as the Republican side, and the Democrat side would be more like, oh, he's raising prices, blah, blah, blah. He's not a negotiator. And that's it. Canada. The reason Canada and the Liberal Party is getting so much steam over there is because it's Donald Trump's fault for their prices. And they have an actual person who they can fight against.
I feel bad for Pierre up there because he had something really to run on, and Donald Trump just came in and just gave them every excuse. Enemy. Yeah, it's a shame. And I do think Pierre made the wrong move, but, it was something that he had to do. He has to stand with his country, obviously. Once he says, I'm with Donald Trump, and all these Canadians are mad at Trump, they're going to be like, well, fuck Pierre, I'm not voting for him.
Exactly.
So he had to choose the right side, but I do think it was kind of bad for him politically. It was a bad situation.
But that's
for him.
The thing is,
I do hope he wins in October, though.
Donald Trump needs to be the president of Americans, not president of the world.
Yep.
And I agree the United States, like you and I disagree with that. United States, I do believe, has a place on the world stage, and I think it's very critical. But when you and I agree is very much that we need to pull out of the Middle East entirely. We need to pull out of NATO. Giving all this money to Ukraine entirely. We need to pull out of NATO. Yep. All NATO does is make us every single day feel like, oh shoot, are we going into a war because one of our NATO countries is not getting along with another country? Like,
my argument is, and I don't actually believe this, because even if we had a balanced budget and no debt, I would still not want to send money to foreign countries. But I'll just say it for the sake of argument. When we're this deep in debt and have this large of a deficit and this deep in the hole in the economy, why the fuck are we sending any money to any country for any reason?
But why are we sending money for military and we're not sending humanitarian aid? Exactly. That's what we should be sending. Is helping.
If anything, yes.
If anything, we should be supporting countries that build them up,
right.
not supporting
Germany regime with changes in the Middle East. You know what I mean? It's just
not supporting Germany when they're finding people for free speech. Not supporting the surveillance state of the UK.
Yeah.
Not supporting. Oh, look at all these border countries that are trying to join NATO with Russia. It's like we are creating the exact place for World War III, and I think people throw that term around a lot too much, but we're genuinely in this place because of our leaders, and the reason there's a real worry is because Americans, for the first time, I think, are actually waking up, in the sense of sitting here and being like, I don't want to be sent overseas to fight for Israel. I don't want to be sent overseas to fight Ukraine. I saw a post the other day that a Ukrainian woman was on the front lines and bleeding, and people in the comments were being like, "Oh, yay, like the strong woman." And then like every quote tweet was like, "If you," as kind of what I said was, "If you send your women to the front lines, you've already lost the war."
Yep.
And that is true.
Dude, you're fighting fucking Russia. You're not gonna win. If you don't make a deal, you're all gonna die. That's a fact. And the fact that they're still just taking people off the streets, like women and, people that are mentally challenged, disabled people, like, what are you doing?
Yes.
It's disgusting. Any form of forced military service is slavery, in my opinion. But when you're doing it in the time of war to people that can't even really make a decision, like somebody that's got autism or something, you're an evil human being. Anyway.
Our world is corrupt.
It is very corrupt. And it's always been corrupt, unfortunately.
It's just
it's
more revealed.
The more shit I learn about these JFK files and JFK, it seems like he was like our last real president. So, and he got killed for it. Okay, I did want to touch on this briefly just because it's really wild. So Netanyahu and John Fetterman met I guess today or yesterday.
John Fetterman, Netanyahu's #1 fan.
Yeah. And like he gifts him a pager, which he's also gifted like this tree trunk pager thing to Trump too. But he like gave him a pager, and then Fetterman proceeds to say, "Oh yeah, when that story broke, I was like, oh, I love it. And then they're laughing it off and goes, "Oh, thank you for this." It's like, dude, you're accepting a pager from a guy who like used this as like a weapon to kill a bunch of his enemies, and you're taking it as a gift. Isn't that just really weird? And Trump accepted one too. He accepted a pager from his ally. And it's like, dude, this guy used pagers to kill a bunch of his enemies.
I'm sorry.
And now you have it sitting in the fucking Oval Office?
Like let's just play this out. You go and put a pager and go kill somebody. You and I agree both that person should be killed. Then you're like, here's a pager for you. Yeah. It's like, what does that say?
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
it goes,
thanks, man.
Am I under surveillance? Is this a threat? Are you trying to kill me?
It's like in those old movies where they're like, you're marked for death.
Yeah.
And it's like, so here's your pager. And it's like, well, I've been marked for death, I guess.
I don't know what it says. Maybe it says like, "Hey, I own you." Maybe it is a threat. I don't know. Maybe it's just some twisted, evil kind of like, "Oh yeah, look what we did. Remember we did that? Well, here we're just gonna laugh about it. Here's a pager." Either way, it's just kind of gross. That's all I really have to say today. I don't know if you had anything else.
No, I think it's sad when the people that you want to support you can't support. I love, as far as the area of the state of Israel. I don't want to say the government. I like the people there in general, like that I've met from, and also family there. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. They have been attacked all throughout their history.
And it looks like a really cool country.
And Israel is literally where my Lord and Savior walked and came to this earth.
Holy land.
It's literally the holy land for Christians and for Jews, and Jews for a different reason. But for Christians, it's like this is where the Messiah walked.
Yeah.
And I want a Western country to be in control of that because I trust a Western country.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you are graphically actually murdering kids, mm-hmm. when you are using essentially dirty tactics and say pagers to bomb people, when you are inciting wars to go after all these countries. I understand all these countries have attacked you, right? They attacked you in 1948. They attacked you in 1967. Hamas has consistently attacked you since 2008, 2009. I get that. Murdering civilians is never okay.
Yeah, telling people to leave an area because you're going to bomb this area, so they have to go out into the desert and have tents out there. And then bombing the area you told them to evacuate in.
Here's where I stand.
That's fucking evil. That's like genocide, dude.
Dropping
that's
two bombs.
That's Adolf Hitler level evil right there.
In World War II, when we dropped both the bombs on Japan,
evil.
That was pure evil, and it was the worst our country has ever. And also, we are the reason we started the nuclear race because we decided to drop 2 bombs, and that is basically. So I know a lot of people will say like, well, it was necessary. It wasn't necessary to kill civilians.
No, it's never necessary.
It never is necessary. Civilians are an innocent target.
I love the argument, and they always make this when civilians get killed. They say, oh, well, it's this or that. It's like, no, there's other fucking options. You don't get to say, oh, it's do nothing or just genocide. If you are trying to make that argument, you're not a good person. Sorry. Yeah.
The show is a little bit disorganized today, but because it was just kind of not just more of the same, it was just more like a conversational piece today about just JFK files in general.
It's just the state
Daily
of both
Wire.
parties, and
we're at a weird state in our country where I've always been in the camp, even during Biden, when those polls would come up and saying, do you think the country's going in a good direction? Even under Biden, I was just like, well, the country's still moving forward. We're still we're slowly working towards like ideas that I'm like, okay, I'm fine with. But this is the first time during Donald Trump's term that like, if I looked back, I would change how I'd vote on that. And right now I do not like the state our country is going.
Nope.
And we have the guy in power that I voted for.
Yes.
And so,
and I'm actually ashamed of my vote. I hate to say it. I am ashamed. IVF, lack of transparency with the Epstein files, which is a fucking pedophile ring, which they seem to be covering up. Propping up of Saudi Arabia, one of the worst governments in the world. Propping up of Israel and their never-ending wars in the Middle East, and supporting their genocide.
The only reason I don't regret my vote is because you can only vote based on the knowledge that you have at the time.
I don't regret my vote. I'm ashamed of my vote. It's a difference. I don't regret,
Okay,
like, if I could go back in time, I would change it. But I'm not like regretful, like, oh, at the time I should have known. It's like, no. Now that I know what I know, I am upset that I voted this way. I wouldn't have voted at all. I would not have. I couldn't have voted for her. Give me a break. But yeah, I wouldn't have voted. Like, just mentally, the fact that I voted for a man that is committing murder in the Middle East.
I was
so
out
gross.
at IVF when he pushed that forward.
Yep.
And that was
he
like
did
in
campaign on that. We should have known better.
Well, here's the difference. Is a lot of people campaign on stuff, and it's like, and we were in the high of it, right? It was like everything was going well, and so I didn't think that, let alone I didn't think it would be a priority in the first like couple weeks.
Yeah.
The fact that he did that as quick as he did in the first 50 days, and it was a priority for him.
Yep.
When our economy is in shambles, when all these wars in the foreign countries are happening, and we're now pushing for those, and you prioritize killing kids, and you want to claim that you're the most pro-life president because you had the opportunity to put judges on the Supreme Court, which Amy Coney Barrett's not even being a Republican judge. So great job on that part, I guess.
And it goes to show that during his first administration, when we all claimed, oh, he just had bad actors around him, bad advisors that were pro-war. No, even when he has a much better cabinet, he's still pro-war. So he's still in the Middle East. He's still supporting Israel. He's still supporting Saudi Arabia. He's still, propagating all these never-ending wars. And it's like, dude.
He had 2.5 years of presidency that I was like, I believed in him.
Right.
And ever since then, during COVID and during this entire period of his second term, I am deeply ashamed of that vote, and I agree. Yep. I'm with you in that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, my final point would just be, please, going forward, if anybody ever listens to this, do not be loyal to a fucking politician. Find your principles and stick with them. Be like Thomas Massey, man. Just don't budge just because your guy is doing something wrong. Don't budge on your principles. It's so important.
Yeah, and with that, I thank you for joining Amercian Mandate again. We'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, take it easy.